The Chicago Bears enter a bye week, a game they cannot lose at 4-8. But if you've ever been on, whether it's Twitter, whether it's any internet forum, the only conversation around the Chicago Bears right now revolves around the quarterback, Justin Fields. And in a 3-part series that Nick and I are going to be reviewing the entire Bears team, we figured why start anywhere else? We're going to make this podcast episode all about Fields. Honestly, Nick, so we don't have to talk about him again. But we'll get into it. All the ups, all the downs. Where's he good? Where's he not? What could he get better at? What is what it is? All this and more on this episode of Bear With Us. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bear With Us, a Chicago Bears podcast hosted by yours truly, Robert Schmitz, editor-in-chief of the Bears blog, alongside my co-host, Nick Whalen from Football Guys. And Nick, what a nice weekend it is to be talking about the Bears. I mean, we're starting to enter December. It is long. It is crazy how long this season has been going on. What better topic to talk about than number one, man? The only one anybody wants to talk about. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I named my dog after him. Like I'm a big fan. It's off of a win, right? I mean, we have the bye where we have the win going into it. It's cold here in Wisconsin, Robert. The snow is here now. So I'm glad that we don't have to talk about, another loss and all the question marks, but now we can just talk in depth about Fields. But before that,
Mm-hmm.
we had some other good Bear news. I thought I would ask a question of you to be
Tell me.
realistic with this question. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Devin Hester got named into the group, the semifinals for the Hall of Fame. Do you think Devin Hester deserves to be in the Hall of Fame?
Deserves? Absolutely. I think Devin Hester and I think Peanut Tillman deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm a huge believer in, instead of just giving people volumetric awards or high profile players awards, like for instance, I think there might be too many quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame. When a quarterback or when a player changes the rules in some way, shape, or form, I think that player deserves the Hall of Fame because they have impacted the way that football will forever be played. It is, to me, a crying shame that something the announcers call the peanut punch. You didn't ask me about Charles Tillman, but I'm going to
No,
rant about him
no.
anyways.
Yeah, you're going there.
Like the fact that announcers to this day reference the peanut punch and then they say old Charles Tillman as if you're just supposed to know what team he played for because you
Mhm.
said his name that way. Like, I didn't know who Zach Thomas was, and that's probably because I'm too young. But
Oh, I
like
remember Zach Thomas.
there are some of these players where you go through the Hall of Fame list and you're like, that's a really good lineman. Honestly, part of me feels like you have to open the class up in some way, shape, or form to add more guys because football has all kinds of legends. Football's amazing that way. But it's just a shame to me that Devin Hester, who was effectively the last great kick returner before they changed the rules and made it to where you pretty much can't return a kickoff for a touchdown unless you are
Right.
obscenely lucky, he was the story. He returned a Super Bowl opening kickoff for 6. Like,
Mhm.
you can't build the legend any better. He was nearly the entire offense. I mean, it felt that way, right? In 2006, where it was like, if the defense didn't score, Devin would score. And if the defense and Devin didn't score, we lost, right? Or you
Well, I
handed it
mean,
off to
so
Thomas Jones.
yeah, so there's a couple things here. One is I agree with you. I think that the Hall of Fame has softened. A lot of it was when Bryant Young went in. I was like, he was just a good player. Was he a Hall of Fame player? I think Leroy Butler was also like debatable because there's like a Hall of Very Good. And even Deion Sanders said that. He's like, you better put me in a different category because I'm in there and these guys are not in my area. Like you have to be, I think, elite at something. Think of Gale Sayers, right? I know Bears fans will recognize,
Sure.
him and like he was elite for a short period of time, but he was at least elite. It wasn't he was there and he accumulated yards for 12, 13 seasons, and that's kind of the Hall of Very Good. Now, I do respect some guys that could stay healthy and could have long maybe very good careers,
Of
but I think this
course.
good to, solid for a long time. Hey, baseball does it too. Oh, he played for 20 seasons and he has so many hits, so he should
Right.
get in. It's like that's just a long career. That doesn't mean it's elite. So you're right. I do though. Another former Bear. I think Cordell Patterson is the best kick returner ever.
Not going to argue with you.
But
He just did it after the rules were changed. So there
right.
wasn't a way to show the impact. And also, I would argue that he wasn't. I
But
like
hold
this.
on, hold on, though.
Yeah, go.
Hold on. He's the better kick returner, but I think Hester is the best overall returner we've ever seen because you had punts and kicks to it. I mean, it was the other part too that isn't in the stats. And I'm sure someone could figure it out, but the how he flipped field position because people didn't want to kick to
Yes.
him is
Yes.
what made Chicago so good, along with the defense carrying that offense. Is when because think of that Super Bowl, right? He returns the first one for a touchdown. After
Amazing.
that, they squib and kick away from him and improve Chicago's field position because they were scared of him.
Yep.
I've never seen a team that scared of a returner ever.
Never, because he was it. He was the guy. And
Mhm.
kind of like Eddie Jackson in 2019, not quite the same, but after that 2018 season, teams just didn't throw at Eddie Jackson. His interceptions nosedived because you ignored him. You attacked
Yep.
anybody else. And with
Mhm.
Ha Clinton Dix on the field, you could. In this case,
Ugh.
punts and kickoffs, what's the worst? Balls at the 35, balls at
Yeah.
the 40.
I
You'll
I
live
mean,
with it.
remember when Sarburn or, he had 2 against Denver? He hurdled Sarburn in the one, and then he had the kick return for he
Gosh.
had 2 in the same game. It's ridiculous.
Just a different dude. I mean, you go back and you watch those highlights, especially if you watch them at full speed without that weird. I love the fact that NFL Films does the like slowdown to make everything cinematic, but I grew up thinking that football just used to be slow. Like I have found a new love in be as an adult going back and watching bits and pieces of old games at full speed and being like, "Wow, football's been awesome." You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
And one thing that does get kind of funky about the Hall of Fame, I love that you mentioned this. I've heard a lot of people use things like, well, the guys that you can't tell the story of football without. And I'm like, see, that's a different classification because when you start saying the guys you can't tell the story of football without, now Santonio Holmes and that catch that won a Super Bowl
Yep.
enters the list. David
David Tyree.
Tyree is the
Yeah.
one that everybody thinks of. Eli Manning shouldn't be a Hall of Famer. Sorry, Giants fans. But he won the most NFL football game ever played. Like beating like 18-1. And that game and the ending to that season is why people like the NFL more than college. Like most NFL fans will agree that the ability for a team to go through adversity and just squeeze their way into the playoffs and from there write their own destiny is most of the fun, right?
Yeah.
The
That's
idea
the Cinderella story, man.
you're not out until somebody puts you out.
Yep.
Like it's the most physical game played at the highest level, and that's why. And to me, because of that, we get a bunch of people trying to find weird justifications to put their guy in because 32 teams
Mhm.
have heroes. Like I'm still amazed Brian Urlacher actually got in Ray Lewis's class, not because Urlacher didn't deserve it, but because Ray Lewis I would have expected to just hog, if you will, all
Yeah.
of the attention for linebacker, right?
Yeah.
And so I hope Hester gets in. I mean, I think Ray Guy, he got in, right? He did
I think
eventually get in.
yeah, and in this class, I think there's some guys for sure. I think Antonio Gates will get in for sure. I'm trying to think of who the other Julius Peppers, I think will get in for sure. Um, a couple others, I mean, I kind of like. I mean, I know this is not Bears, players, but I think London Fletcher gets in second most all-time tackles. He was good with multiple franchise, I would say very good to elite with multiple franchises. Then you get the receivers, in which you talked about like the rules changing, like Torrey Holt, Andre Johnson,
Oh
who's the
man.
other one? Steve Smith, Anquan Bolden. They're all there, and then a lesser guy behind Ward. But it's like, what all do you value, and like when do you get them in? Those would be kind of my that group. I think you get 5 from that group of players.
So the problem that I have with the Hall of Fame, and we're gonna get off of this, is that when I talk to guys like Jack Silverstein at Windy City Gridiron or Jeff Burkus, also at Windy City Gridiron, that know the Hall of Fame and the way that it works better than I do, I start to hate it that much more. It comes down to how many seasons were you a Pro Bowl, which basically is a media vote. Like it
Yep.
really becomes, did the media celebrate you enough? Right? Because when you look at defenders that played from when Charles Tillman's career started to when Charles Tillman's career ended, would you believe it, Nick? Out of all defenders, this is all positions. This is not DBs. This is not just DBs and linebackers. This includes defensive ends. Only Robert Mathis forced more fumbles than Charles Tillman. And
Really?
only Charles Woodson picked off more passes than Charles Tillman, who's definitively second place in both, and if you add the turnovers, is a clear first place. But that just
Wow.
doesn't matter because DeAndre Hall caught 4 interceptions off of Jay Cutler, ended up having 6 interceptions in the season, and he made a Pro Bowl, and Charles Tillman did not. So the fact that,
Hmm.
to be honest with you, media members just didn't know ball enough to appreciate what Charles Tillman was
Yeah.
doing is what's going to keep him out of the Hall of Fame until probably the senior committee puts him in. And
What
at that point, I pretty much boycott the whole process, and I'm
what
trying to be cool about
no,
it.
I get it. I have 2, so I'll let you go first. What is your favorite Charles Tillman moment then?
Oh man,
Since
so
since since you've transitioned this into the Charles Tillman, we're gonna celebrate him. Let's
is
celebrate.
that
What's your I
okay?
have
Is that
2.
okay that we went to Charles Tillman before
Yeah.
talking about
Well
Justin
well,
Fields?
and if you don't have either of these 2, I'm gonna tell both of them. So what's your favorite Charles
So
Tillman
I
moment?
I I grew up just late enough that I caught the tail end of Charles Tillman. I didn't get Charles Tillman against Randy, like the Randy Moss matchup that everybody loves to talk about. But what I always loved was listening to people bill the upcoming Bears Lions game as a game that Calvin Johnson was going to just go mash in, and me pretty much just sitting there knowing, no, he's not. He really struggles against Bears because he
Uh-huh.
lines up against number
Yep.
33. And the Bears are lucky, honestly, that we were still playing offense that was all inspired by the 2000s. Because had the Lions, I don't know, been coached by Kevin O'Connell, they just would have lined CJ up in the slot and he would have
Yep.
eaten even more. Whenever they
Mhm.
did put him in the slot, he ate anyways. I'll never forget him stiff arming a corner named DJ Moore, or a safety, it should be, and just racing into the end zone in Motown. But the way Charles Tillman would duel maybe the best to ever do it at receiver was always just like a childhood nostalgia I will
Mhm.
never let go
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, that's definitely kept them in more games against Detroit with
Don't
one
ask
of the
about how
best
he did
receivers.
against guys like Steve Smith, though.
Yeah, we
It's a
don't like
matchup mess. That's
we don't
that's the
like we don't like
kryptonite.
Steve Smith in Chicago. We know that. Okay,
DJ
so the
Moore
ones
would
I
have
like,
killed Charles Tillman, is what I'm trying to get at.
well, he
But
killed
like,
everyone who don't we can't even talk about the playoff game, man. Come on, that's PTSD. Okay. So one would be Charles Tillman as a rookie ripping away the interception from Randy Moss. That was
outstanding.
when Randy Moss was in his prime. And Tillman, we were like, okay, well, he's showing a little bit. Actually, as a small story, so with my college coaching, I was on the same staff with his former college strength and conditioning coach when he was at Louisiana Lafayette. So I was like, how is he? I got some little inside stories, but I knew a little bit of him and I was cheering for him. And then when he ripped away the interception from Moss, it just got me really more, just so much more excited and
Yeah.
appreciative of him. Another one would be when he had the 4 forced fumbles against Tennessee in that
Oh my
game
gosh,
was
that was incredible.
ridiculous.
That was incredible.
And then I'll put in actually a third one. This is underappreciated. I always liked, and this is going to tie the 2 Hall of Famers together, or potential Hall of Famers. How about that? Is Charles Tillman played gunner and special teams when he was a star player and didn't have to, but he did because he was good at it. He was constantly out there, and that helped, I think, clear more paths for Hester to do well, and also to help our special teams on coverage units too. So think of, I mean, think of Jalen Ramsey. Is Jalen Ramsey out there doing special teams? No, he's not doing that at all. But Charles Tillman was.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's so funny looking back because that's like the birth of the new age of football, right?
Mhm,
Like you get this crossover from 2000 to 2010, and you get the seed bed of what has become the current NFL, and things were changing. And it's so funny because had somehow Charles Tillman gotten drafted in 2011 by the Seattle Seahawks, he would be a first ballot Hall of Famer,
yep,
right? He would
yep,
fit in so well with the Legion of Boom. He was
mhm,
still on a legendary defense in his own right and was one of the major pieces of that defense being so good.
mhm.
It's just it's a shame, to be honest, to
It
me,
is.
that so many people missed it in the moment, because I think he deserves all the honors the Bears could give him. But that's also why rings of honor are so huge for each individual team, is because
Mhm,
guys like DeMarcus Lawrence, for instance, he's a great cowboy, or
mhm,
Dak Prescott when all things are said and done. Like
mhm.
I'm using local Dallas examples for obvious reasons, but
Well, yeah, but we could use Chicago here. I'll add one in here. I think Lance Briggs has been super underrated. There were many
oh
years
yeah,
I thought he was the best linebacker we had.
I mean, he took over games at
Yep.
times. And
Mhm.
not to mention, gosh, I'm looking for other examples. Like when you think about, I don't know, it gets so funny because like Adewale Ogunleye was good, but he wasn't amazing. The Bears
Mhm.
didn't really have a lot of defensive linemen that were really outstanding
Yeah.
until we got Peppers, and then he kind of took
Yeah.
over
I
for
mean,
a little
Tommy
while.
Harris had a couple of years and then
Tommy
he
Harris
didn't.
was amazing until he was hurt, and then it was
Yep.
over. But
Yep.
well, no, I can't say speaking of hurt and then it was over. That is way too depressing and
Whoa.
untrue,
Whoa.
and
Come on.
untrue, and
Come on.
untrue. But we should get back to the Justin Fields piece of this because I've seen it all over Twitter that everybody wants to talk about Justin Fields. Honestly, Nick, people have been wanting to talk about Justin Fields for the last 13 weeks, which I guess includes preseason week 3. If we weren't talking about it earlier, he's been
Mhm.
nearly the only story. And watching the Minnesota game, and I mean, I'm sure you've had this same issue, Nick. Life comes up, and especially after a Monday night game that disrupts our rhythm. One of my best film days is Monday, which of course was game day. So
Yep.
then Tuesday, I still didn't get the film until like 5 because nobody gets Monday night games soon unless you're, Tim Jenkins, Chase Daniel. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I have watched the first half of the game, and then I watched the last piece of the game. And what is so funny about watching that Minnesota game, in my opinion, is that it was one of the more Fields games we could have expected. I mean, how did Fields find more success against Minnesota than he did the first time? Because he just out athleted everybody.
Yep.
Like, where was he drastically better in structure? Not really. But he was way, way sicker when he's rolling to his left, like finding a tight arm angle throw to DJ Moore. When he misses a read to his left, he rolls out of the pocket and fires a strike, an improv strike, mind you, to Khalil Herbert, who turns it
Mhm.
into a faux wheel route and creates 12 yards out of nowhere. Like Justin Fields broke, what was it, 3, 4 tackles, like very early in the game. And then on 4th and 10, when Minnesota sent an all out blitz, he did his job, stayed alive, and found Cole Kmet. I'm not trying too hard to like take shots at Fields. It was just so funny because in structure, we were still the same guy. But the out of structure stuff got so much better from what it
Mhm.
was against Minnesota that you started to see that top 20 quarterback in the NFL who's effectively winning by sheer force of will in this case, but also winning with let's give him the Cairo 48-yard field goal, winning 15-10, which is, something we would tease Bryce Young for if that's a
Yeah.
situation that he found himself in.
Mhm.
So let's start at the top, right?
Well, hold on.
Oh yeah, no,
I
you're right. You need to get a piece in about Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, so part of this is when you watch the film, obviously there's all the screens, which we joked about on the post game pod is like something he wasn't great at. I thought he did better with those throws. I think it helps when Lucas Patrick snaps it decently well, unlike earlier in the season. But there were a couple throws that he missed on. There were a couple reads maybe he could have hit, but there were also multiple where he's not going to go here, then he goes here, and he definitely improved. It was almost like the Green Bay game where he's like, I want to just complete passes, whether it's the check down,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a
He got
spot
the
route to
ball to
Colt Kmet.
somewhere.
Yep. And then you said he was also a hero because he can do that. There are times, I mean, we know Justin Fields is athletic. I think we forget sometimes how much of a freak he is at that position. Like he's a better athlete than Jalen Hurts is. I mean, it's him and Lamar. I mean, I don't know, Anthony Richardson is hurt. I wouldn't put him in that category yet. Those two are freaks. Other than that, people are just like good athletes. Like we just saw Josh Dobbs on the other side. He's a good athlete. He's not Justin Fields. Remember the one when Fields had the design just roll out like or correct keep around the corner, and there were 3 Vikings there, and he's just like, I'm faster than all you guys, and boom, 12-yard gain. Like
Oh yeah.
he can just do things, and we forget those special moments. Like if we go back to that Denver game, oh, he boots. There's a guy there. He messes with him like 3 times and then hits Khalil Herbert for a touchdown. Like he has this special category to him. 49ers fans know this from what his rookie year
Oh yeah.
when the run isn't there, your versus field. Like, he has so much to him that he did that in Minnesota and made you excited. Like if we go back 4 weeks, Robert, we are his last 4 games, great game against Denver. He had the fumble. I get it. But I would say a great game overall. Great game against Washington. not great half and one drive against Minnesota. And then I would say a very good game against Detroit. And now we have this game. And so you add all those together, it's like, well, he had one down game out of five. And we're really down on him as our quarterback. It's like I was more impressed on the film, I thought, than I would be. PFF actually, shockingly, people aren't going to believe this. That was his second highest pass grade game of the season was against Minnesota last week.
And I would argue that makes sense when you think about how PFF grades it, because there really were a lot of these plays. Let me use a perfect example. It's a third and it's like a third and five, third and six on the early drive, the first drive, right? And the Bears call something that's got Tyler Scott running an in against a cover three look where it's very obvious from Jump Street he's going to be open, right? Justin Fields keeps his eyes on the right, doesn't like what DJ Moore is stone cold locked up just based on the coverage you knew he would be. Fields hangs on the read a little too long, darts back to Scott late. Scott is wide open if we throw with anticipation, but we don't. Instead, we check down to Cole Kmet. And Cole Kmet plus Roshan Johnson tush pushing him works out that way sometimes, right? Turns
Mhm.
that into a first down. Is that a bad play? Well, no. Right?
It's not a great
it's
play, but it's not a bad play. Yeah, I agree with you.
it's even within structure technically because
Mhm.
we found our check down in
Yep.
rhythm. Like he got Cole Kmet when Cole Kmet is releasing his block very very fluidly. Was there an easier path over the middle that Brock Purdy, who I'm using purely because Brock Purdy might be our best example of like anticipatory throws is what the kid does,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
He's gonna hit that throw, and everybody's gonna go, "Oh, Kyle Shanahan! Wow, Kyle Shanahan's so good! Like everything's so easy. God, these weapons too good." That's what Purdy would have done, right? But Fields finds a play, and it ends up a first down. PFF is going to score this as a like plus half or a plus zero. They aren't gonna say "Meh, misread, kid
Yep.
sucks." You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yep.
But it is still emblematic of the player that we have seen. And that player, like you're talking about, gets way too much undue hate because of the situation the Bears sit in, where it's not common. You can actually say, I don't like my quarterback. Let's draft the best quarterback in the
Yeah, yeah,
draft.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's rare. And it only happened, honestly, because of some pretty unbelievable luck. And that's why, if you don't mind, as we talk about what Justin Fields is, let's make a deal, right? Let's pretend the number one pick doesn't exist for the entire conversation. Let's talk about exactly what Justin Fields is with the assumption that the only way to get any better would be to like work a trade for Kyler Murray that might take a first round pick from either this year or next year's draft. Maybe you're going to sign Derek Carr if like the Saints cut him or work a trade for Matthew Stafford. You get what
Y
I'm saying?
your
Something
your boy,
expensive.
Kirk Cousins. You
So
you always bring up Kirk
I
Cousins.
always
There you
bring
go.
up Kirk Cousins totally. Like you can go the sign Kirk Cousins route,
Sure.
but let's assume that to sign Kirk Cousins, you still have to ink him to a minimum 3-year deal because some other desperate like entity is already offering that. And if you're gonna
Yep.
win the money, like because that's the part about the Kirk Cousins piece that I gotta admit to you, I've been getting wrong, is I keep thinking you could get him on something medium reasonable. Oh no. It's
No.
Baron Wasteland at quarterback.
No, he
It's
makes he makes a lot of money and he's come off a major injury. So no, I'm okay with it. So if we look at Fields, okay,
Mhm.
and and I'll just start with in terms of like what does he do well?
Yes.
And the one thing I think that I want to start with what he does well is I want to start with like where has he improved? Because like there are things that he does well, and there's things that I think that he is gotten better at that people just aren't recognizing. So one is we saw this at Ohio State, we saw that this year. He's really good at the deep ball and not just throwing the deep ball, it's throwing the deep ball and completing the deep ball. I mean,
Mhm.
there are many of them, which we know of, like Velus Jones against Dallas last year, that they're deep balls that should have been completed that he just threw that were well. Heck, Velus Jones this year in the end zone, right? Like there's multiple that could be even better, but he's really good at the deep ball. He has the arm for it. He has the confidence to throw it, which is an issue we'll get to later. Arm strength, I think, is there to make the throws outside the numbers with confidence. Think of Washington on those curls. He's going to hit it in there. And then obviously athleticism, creativity. that is there in spades. I mean, he can do things very few people on this earth can do as a quarterback, and it's special. I mean, let's
Mhm.
go back to Detroit last year, or home game against Detroit last year, Robert. There's a quick motion in and then out to Darnell Mooney because they were going to mess, right? They thought that Detroit was banjoing that coverage,
Mhm.
but nope, they did it correctly and Mooney isn't open. Fields is dead from the three. What do I do? Fields runs around and then gets free and then runs over and knocks out a
Mhm.
DB to score a touchdown. Like, oh my God. And Hutchinson was right there too.
Yep.
Nope, you don't matter. And he does it. Like, special in terms of creativity. We already talked about he can, and I think he's improved this year in the creativity department of buying time and then throwing. Because this is something we talked about before the season started. We need him to add that to his repertoire, and he's been doing that. He did it against Minnesota. He did that against Denver twice for touchdowns. I mean, that's another layer that when you can move, you adjust the zones that were already there, and now they're not going to cover them, and you get guys open. And the last thing I want to talk about, I think that is a strength, is his improvement with accuracy. So I pulled up some of these numbers because I think sometimes people really think he's like not an accurate quarterback and he's messing up all the time, or the Justin Fields can't throw crowd, right? So his I have bad throw percentage and on target percentage. So last year he was 71.1% on target. This year he's improved up to 75.2% on target percentage.
Where does that stand among the league?
So last year he was like 25th, I want to say, in that
Okay.
area in terms of on target. And now he's up to 20th in on target percentage.
Okay.
And then last year he was 19.3% bad throw percentage. And off the top of my head, I think that was like seventh worst last year.
Mhm.
And now he's 15% bad target percentage, which is dead middle, like 16th. So now, is he the most accurate everywhere quarterback? No, but that's a significant improvement in a short period of time. And that's not just, well, he has DJ Moore. That's the on target and bad throw percentage. That's still throwing the ball to whoever is there. Whether they catch it or not doesn't matter. So to me, I think those are his strengths and some places that he's improved. Do you have any other areas or you want to talk about some of those as well?
I actually want to talk about a lot of things. I mean,
Yeah.
not only has Fields improved in some areas, but like you're saying, right now, Fields has become a hilarious statistical anomaly that if you're not really paying attention, it can be quite difficult to have conversations with people about Fields' statistics because when Justin Fields throws the ball, he is succeeding in wide berths. Like when Justin Fields throws the ball, it is very commonly accurate. When Justin Fields drives the ball to DJ Moore, people could screen grab that throw and say, this young quarterback is how you should throw the football. Like when Fields puts all 10 of his or like all of his cleats in the ground, turns his hips and generates that natural torque we know him to. It is a beautiful thing. I think you'd agree, Nick. Like
Mhm.
watching him throw the ball deep is pretty. It
Oh,
looks
yeah.
really wonderful.
Well,
And
just like the drive against Minnesota, when he
mhm,
let that ball go, I knew it was complete. Did you?
yeah. But also, that's not fair to ask me because I watched the big game on a 50-second delay. And it's why, if you know me at all, it's why my reaction tweets seem delayed. But I know what happens because
Ah,
I'm also in like a couple Bears group chats that I can't not read because I
okay.
have to know one way or another. So
Okay.
I saw people freaking out. But I mean, come on. You know when he throws it that he's going to throw to somebody who's wide open. It's why he looks so good when he does it. I think his release has been better this year. Like a lot of people whined about how long Justin Fields' lopey release is. He is getting off a lot of throws that are wrist flicks that I didn't think he could throw as recently as week 4 this year. Like this is something that he seems to have worked on. I don't know when he did it, but it's really benefited his game because, like we talked about that throw to Komet and a couple others in the Minnesota game, the only reason the ball came out at all is because he shot putted the ball. And that's a good
Mhm.
thing. In the Detroit game and this game, Justin Fields drops back a total of 60 times. Do you know how many sacks he took?
4.
5. But the accounting on that still, frankly, gets kind of weird because you have to trust people to get the QB draws right, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But that's
yeah.
still much better than the
Yep.
13% sack percentage that we were looking
Mhm.
at. 8.5% or whatever that number is, that's normal, dare I say it, for a lot of these like hold the ball quarterbacks, and that brings things in line. There are a lot of pieces to this, Nick, that Justin Fields has gotten better at. He's hanging in the pocket more than ever. Like he used to run out of the pocket at the first sign of trouble. And now
Yep.
now he kind of gets, panicky in the pocket, but he's determined to stay in it, and that in and of itself is pretty admirable. Is there anything you want to continue talking about as we go through this? Cuz
Yeah.
there's a lot of layers to this, and as we try
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
peel them all, like,
I
I hope we get everything.
Yeah, I know. So I have one more thing that's an improvement, and one thing I think that I heard Kyle Shanahan say that we have to touch on. So, um, he does things in that creativity mode where he changes his arm angle too, which I think is nice. He has that in his repertoire to still bend and make things work to complete passes. A lot of those are screens or still dump offs, but he still can make them work. Kyle Shanahan, I believe, is the guy that I heard this from. So I think there's kind of a divide. People think that players have a lot of time to improve technique and timing and a bunch of other things during the season with their coaches, and they don't. What they do during the season is they have meetings, they have installations, they practice plays with other players, and that's a lot of what it is. The individual, and I know this as a coach, the individual time I have to work on drops, to work on snaps, to work on whatever is minimal. That might be 15 minutes a day. Maybe if I get 45 minutes a week on individual time, that's lucky for me. And that's to cover everything. I can't say, "Hey, Justin, I need you to hold the ball a little bit more here. I need you to have more quick
You
movements
don't
within
get
your
that time.
core. I need you to do this." They don't get that. That's with private coaches in the off season. That's when they improve. So when we're talking about he's improved in this, he's improved with this. You talked about release. That's someone driven and has, they've reached out to people to say, "Hey, can you help me with this?" in their
That
own time with their own money.
plus a 4-week dislocated thumb. That will help you, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you've got the time to do individual drills that other
Mhm.
people don't, where you're not even holding the ball, right? Just because, or maybe you are, but you're not throwing it. You get it. Um, another piece to talk about here. So Tom Brady got or made some really famous comments just recently talking about how, in his opinion, the current product of the NFL is mediocre. Well, one interesting piece to the story here that I feel like Tom left out is that when Tom joined the league, there were no limits and restrictions on practice time. You could have practiced until
Yeah.
you were dead, basically. You didn't have to sleep if you didn't want to. You could just keep drilling. And I imagine a lot of quarterbacks did. So when it comes to what Justin and a lot of these other quarterbacks are having to live through right now in the modern NFL, they don't get the reps, man. Like,
Mhm.
that's why they all talk about this virtual reality thing, is because technically it's a way to continue practicing, even though somebody else is on the field running the twos and the threes during training camp. There's just not that many reps, man. It is hard to get better because at the end of the day, Justin Fields, I mean, let's say it like this, Nick. When Justin Fields has all of his receivers down to his home in Georgia or Florida or wherever he's living, I cannot remember where it is, and they throw during the offseason, that's great. But it doesn't help him navigate Daniil Hunter's pass rush or a 6-man blitz or all the things that come with organized football. You are only going to get better at that. Maybe during camp, but probably during games.
Yep.
So this is the time when we're looking for Fields to improve. He is improving. And if
Mhm.
there wasn't a certain draft pick hanging over everybody's head, we would be very in between, I would say, because to kind of segue into what Fields isn't doing well, it feels kind of ridiculous watching a quarterback that next gen stats logs as a 3.37 time to throw against a team that blitzes almost 50% of snaps. That, you know what I'm saying? Like, that just doesn't feel fun to watch sometimes as you
Yep.
watch the quarterback sit back and you count to five, six, oh my gosh, seven, we're at eight, and now we throw it away. Kinds of plays where you're like, why is nothing really down there? And especially because the broadcast keeps things so tight, I almost feel like the way football is even like programmed, man. Like, that makes it harder on Justin Fields when he plays his style because it is really easy to hone in on number one, holding the ball.
Yep.
And I want you to start with talking about this. How much of Justin Fields being the guy who holds the ball is a bad thing? And how much of it is not a bad thing?
Yeah, I think that, people talk about the time in the pocket, the amount of sacks, the amount of hits, things like that. I think it's a combination of a few things. One, I think it's him. He doesn't like to throw into tight windows, which we know. He likes to throw the ball down the field. And two, like, if you are amazing as an athlete, you're like, I can get rid of this guy. I can, like, his first fumble. That's kind of what I thought. It was like, I can break this tackle. I'm still not going to fumble. Then he fumbles. Like, you more in your repertoire versus like Kirk Cousins. Like, I got to get rid of this because I'm not
Yes.
going to break a tackle. I'm going to
Yes.
get hit. Jared Goff, same thing. So like, Bajent, I got to get rid of this. I'm not going to be able to run away. I'm not going to break the tackle. I'm not going to make a play. So when that's in your repertoire, you're going to get sacks. And so I think that's part of the timing. And then there's another piece, but I'll talk about that later.
I think you're absolutely right. I've always joked around about this, but I kind of mean it seriously. That one of the things that makes guys like Nick Foles, I used to say Mac Jones. I can't really say Mac Jones anymore. That guy has just fallen apart. Like
Who?
he he is throwing Mac Jones, McCorkle
Who?
Jones is throwing some interceptions that I have never seen thrown in the NFL.
I was just doing a Mike Jones joke, by the
Oh,
way,
I know.
everybody.
I got you. But I'm still thinking about that Frankfurt interception and the two interceptions that we saw against New York that were just like, Mac, what are we doing? Like, I mean,
Bad.
that's the kind of stuff that gets you benched, and it did. But
Multiple times.
sticking on Justin Fields, the lack of a need to throw the ball, I think, has not helped him when it comes to just how he grew up as a quarterback, right? I mean, Ohio State designed an entire offense that was basically how can we build the most complex one read system possible? Because
Mhm.
basically, we're gonna let Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson pick whoever you want to throw at based on the like what you see pre snap, and then they're gonna just get open. They ran a bunch of deep option routes. There are
Yep.
better ways to describe this if you want the football jargon, but the gist of it is we're going to use one of the best offensive lines in the NCAA. We're going to use some of the best receivers in the NCAA, and all you have to do, Justin, is wait for them to get open and then throw them the ball. And what did
Mhm.
this give us, Nick? It gives us a quarterback that makes that throw to DJ Moore in Week 4 against Denver, the big slot fade. That is an unbelievable throw. Like
Yes.
there are some of these throws that Fields will make that are just outstanding. And as the guy
Mhm.
who says a lot of negative things about Justin Fields, I can't highlight that enough. That when Justin Fields misses a throw, that's like the weird part because he doesn't really miss that many throws. His
Well,
bad throw
good.
percentage gets weird that way.
Well, just like the post, right? He missed the post against Detroit, the DJ Moore, and then came back to it later, and then he hit it. Like when he missed it, it's like, oh man, normally he hits that deep ball.
And then he hit it the second time and it's perfect and in stride. It's
Yep.
like, well, there it is. The biggest issue that Fields has, I think, is that because he's had all these tools, because he had so many gifts growing up, I don't get the impression that he has an ingrained sense of NFL open, and I don't see how he learns it. I mean, we'll get to that part later of like how much can we expect to change, right? Because his internal clock is getting better. That used to be a real problem. His
Mhm.
pocket footwork is getting better. That used to be a real problem. And I could whine about things like ball security. Truth is, Nick, if you score more touchdowns or converting more first downs, a lot of these fumbles don't happen. Honestly, like to say this in a more realistic football sense, if Justin Fields is getting the ball out time in schedule a few more times, you would see less holding penalties, you would see less fumbles because he would take less hits, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It would create a more holistic Justin Fields can succeed going forward setup if Justin Fields could even just throw into a tight window on first down every once in a while because he would get the ball out. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Mhm. Yeah, and he does that sometimes. I mean, he likes that
Sometimes.
that right slot, just 5-yard hitch or stick route. He likes that. Some of the other areas I think that he struggles. I think one of the big
Oh,
ones
like the
is
Kmet route? Like the
yeah,
one that I swear is
yeah,
always it's either to Kmet or DJ, where he just finds a way to fit the ball to him. I'm with you. That
and that
kind of
and that
thing goes well.
well, he changes the arm angle. Sometimes he gets
Hmm.
that in there too. But one of the areas I think that he struggled in college, has struggled for his entire career in Chicago, because I think our players there are not good, is interior pressure. That is one, because if he gets pressure in his face, he doesn't take the deepest drops, and sometimes he needs a little bit more time. And if the interior pressure is not holding up and he gets pressured there, it's so much more devastating to him than anyone else. That's why not getting a better center is really backfiring.
Right.
Here's a stat for you. So getting Nate Davis back is huge, right? Tevin Jenkins, I'm glad that he came back in the game. I was so scared we are going to lose him again last week. But Lucas Patrick, so he's been the center. Cody Whitehair's gone. We tried Dan Feeney a little bit, but Patrick has been there for, the majority of the season. 4 of his last 5 games, Robert, he has he has less than a 33 pass protection grade according to PFF. He's been horrible, and he is the dead center middle of this. I'm sure you watched on some of the film this last week. Like, he just gets walked back into Justin's face, and especially with teams that are blitzing and twisting and doing everything that Minnesota's doing, if your middle guy can't hold up, it's going to destroy everything that was this pocket that's designed. So that's one thing that he struggles with in general. But we'll talk about with that improving in the future. Throwing over the middle of the field, that's something that has not been his strength or his forte. A lot of his picks actually have come over the middle of the field when he
Right.
throws there. It's been late because it doesn't come with anticipation, or it's when he's down and he's desperate and has to make something happen. Um, Rotating zone coverages sometimes can trick him. Then he holds it and he hesitates. You see that? That's where some
Mhm.
sacks come in. He's not real sure of himself. Some defenses have had fun, I think, messing with him there. And then you highlighted this a lot. So I'll let you run with this one, but
Which one?
inconsistent with his drops, his footwork, and his speed.
So I have to
I
just
know.
say this because it was so funny. Uh, Half of that was more that it was an interesting tidbit that I thought would play really well on video, and I had a feeling that it would do well on Twitter, and then it did. Like, do I actually care? Not really. I learned a lot from it that Justin Fields is one of the slowest droppers in football, but I also learned that the second slowest is Josh Allen. So, like, there are ways to work around this because the difference between Justin and Josh, what Josh really highlighted, is that Josh will get to the back of a lazy drop and immediately, all 10 toes to the ground, rip the ball over the middle. And
Yep.
when you can make that throw, you back the defense off a lot. You force them to play more cover two, right? Like, you force them to play more of these coverages that contain stuff over the middle and let you push the ball outside. Right now, I swear, Nick, I can't help but feel as if Justin Fields is a allergy almost to in breaking routes over the middle of the field. Because I saw Bears fans like throughout the game, they were saying, "Luke, why are we running so many screens? Have we never heard of a slant?" And I'm like, the Bears have called a lot of slants this year. Justin doesn't really like throwing them unless they are wow open, right?
Mhm.
But we've talked about these before, Nick. One of my favorite plays from which game was it? Was it Denver? Where the Bears ran double slants. DJ Moore was open. We didn't throw to DJ Moore, but Justin ran around the left side and made an athletic play, picked up a first down because the check down was him running the ball. I actually thought you shortchanged him. I think Justin Fields is like top 2 athlete in foot or like at the quarterback position. But watching Justin has made me wonder, Nick, whether being top 2 athlete at the position is enough. Like, what is the position? If not, a lot of these subtle things like understanding the timing of when the ball has to come out. And a lot of
Mhm.
this is Luke Getsy, by the way. We're like, what, 40 minutes into this podcast? I should mention this. Like, a lot of this is Justin and Luke Getsy not getting along. But at the same time, we've got quarterbacks all across the league. Justin Herbert and what was it, Joe Lombardi? They didn't get along either. But
Nope.
Justin Herbert still had weeks on weeks on weeks where he's fitting balls into tight windows that make you go, "Holy smokes, this guy gets it!" Even
Mhm.
when the team is losing. With Justin, it feels like, Nick, you need a play exactly like the one that the Bears got late in the game, where not only was DJ Moore open immediately, but he stayed open. And
Yep.
then we drill him with the ball, and then the play is made, and it looks amazing. And it's all to Justin's credit, absolutely. But we missed 2 balls over the middle that would have pushed the ball nearly as far down the field. The first one to Mooney on 1st and 10. The second to, you either could have hit Mooney in a tighter window or Tyler Scott a little later. He just hangs out around the 15-yard mark. And more than anything, Nick, it gives me this feeling that Justin Fields is out there thinking, like, is he open? Yes, no. And the moment he says yes, then he begins to throw the ball rather than seeing the passing lanes and the passing windows that you go, cover two. Okay, so then this is the throwing window. I need to start my throw now to fit the ball between these two linebackers and underneath the safety that's dropping down on this ball so that I can get an 8-yard completion. You get what I'm saying?
You know who else was not good at anticipating, and the arm strength really just overcame a lot, was Jay Cutler.
I was about to say, I don't know who you're going to talk about. There have been examples of this. Russ Wilson famously does not like to throw over the middle. It
Mhm.
can be done. He just throws outside stuff with crazy anticipation
Yep,
to get
yep.
through it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, because Cutler was more of like, I'm gonna wait till you're open, then I can just drill it into any hole because my arm is amazing. And so I think part of this is people see, there's Mahomes, there's all these different quarterbacks, like this is the quarterback you have to be, and this is the only way it's gonna work and you're gonna be successful. That's not how football works. You
Hmm.
can be successful and have so many different skills or different ways to get things done, but the coordinator and the quarterback and the O line and the weapons all have to come together to be successful. And right now, it's just not linked together.
I also think that there is a piece of this where Justin Fields hanging on his read, but also needing the guy to be very, very, very open before he'll throw it is compounding a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Where if Justin Fields went read, 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 check down, okay, we're going to throw the ball on every play. And if Tyler Scott, like he did against, gosh, it was Tampa week 2, I have this really strong memory of a
Oh,
slant that Tyler Scott blows wide open on.
yep.
Okay, we're going to throw the ball to Scott because we looked, we saw the leverage. We said, okay, so he's not open. He's not open. That's my guy. He's open,
Mhm.
and threw the ball to him. Or we could do the Ohio State thing, but just tighten the margins, right?
Yeah.
We could
Yeah.
say, this is your throw. That's it. Like that's
Mhm.
that's all it is. And what you're going to do is throw on the break. And if you throw
Yep.
an interception, I will find him. Like
Mhm.
I'm not going to find you.
And
Right?
well, yeah, and the next part of this is like where could some of these things improve on? And like it really feels like some of the confidence has gone from Fields. And we saw, I think, his rookie year was we saw a more confident thrower, a guy throwing it into tight windows. And so again, we've talked about this before in other pods. Is like, is this him? They don't want him to do this because Bajan didn't do a lot of this either. Or is this who he is? Is he like deteriorating in terms of his confidence? Like we don't know, but things that I think that he
Right.
could actually improve on with some of these weaknesses is one, I think he could be throwing into tight windows and be more anticipatory like he was his rookie year because we saw it. It's not like he's never done it. I saw it. We saw him throw up this seam to Cole Kmet in some super tight windows. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I also saw him do that at Ohio State when they beat Clemson. He hit his tight end in some real tight windows for touchdowns. I also think that, and this is nothing about him, I think that we will have a new center next year, and he will be better than Lucas Patrick. And I will, if they're not better than Lucas Patrick this year and Sam Mustipher last year, then Ryan Poles does not know offensive line.
Right.
But as we've seen, he knows offensive line because he moved Tevin Jenkins into guard when he didn't want it, and it worked. And he knows defensive line. So between him and Cunningham, I think that we're going to find a better center. The other thing I'm going to highlight in terms of what I think could really get better, Robert, is I think his footwork can get better in terms of the speed a little bit, but also like it could link up with the routes better. It could
It
be
has gotten better from a
it
speed
looks
perspective.
chunky. I just want it to be a little more smooth.
Oh yeah. And I mean another thing that I think, okay, so this is not an experiment that I think any of us wanted to see fail, right? But Justin Fields seemed as if he came into the first 3 to 5 weeks of the season. This includes Denver, honestly. But he came into the season expecting to dominate as a pocket passer, right?
Mhm.
These issues popped up, they have stayed up. There were too many moments in week 1, as we know, and we don't need to relitigate, that a receiver popped open and we didn't throw the ball to him. We got the
Yep.
ball to somewhere, but we didn't throw the ball to the receiver that was open downfield. And the moment you do that enough, the defenses start. The defense will never literally ignore a deep open option. Like, there are some ways that people will talk about football, Nick, and they paint a picture of a defensive thing that is not happening, right?
Yeah.
But Minnesota did leave the middle of the field open in some of the most exaggerated fashions throughout the game on Monday night, and the ball still didn't go there, so that one gets to stick. I'm off track. As a reminder to anybody listening, we are pretending like the number one or like Carolina's pick does not exist. So if Nick, I was talking to you about what can improve, I would say Luke Getsy has to start micromanaging Fields. And I think that a lot of people would hear that and they'd go, "What, Robert?" And I'd say, you got until 15 seconds. Use like simplify the language so you can get out of the huddle, see the defense, and say, you're going to throw to this guy. Like, if that's what it takes to get Fields firing, prescribe some stuff. Because as an offensive coordinator, especially with weapons like or with a weapon like DJ Moore, you can have moments where you can say, DJ, you are running the option we talked about. Fields, throw it to him. You know who this worked for? Mitchell Trubisky, who ran so many option routes to Allen Robinson and Tariq Cohen. It would make people's heads spin if you go back and you watch those games again. Why was Allen Robinson getting the ball so often, Nick? It's because that was the guy that the quarterback trusted, and they could just say, run an option route. Mitch, just throw it to him. And you know what
Mhm.
it did? It created the 2018 season. It
Yep.
created an analytically average season, and the only one Mitch Trubisky has ever put in. How much better would it get if you could do some of that with Justin Fields, where one of the options is a slot fade? One of the toughest throws to hit in football, for crying out loud. Like, to me, Nick, if we're talking through what can Fields improve, I think you have to improve his confidence. And I think you start taking drastic measures to get him away from running being the answer. Because I do feel like we're sliding back there ever so slowly. Like, we came out of the Detroit game, we carried the ball 18 times. And if Fields is the guy, we have to find a balance. We have to
Yeah.
throw the ball. We
Yeah.
have to throw the ball. And we have to
Mhm.
score more than 10 points or 12 points over the course of a game. And I
Mhm.
think one of the ways to do it would be to stop doing this thing Luke Getsy is doing. Am I crazy? Because let me get you started on this, Nick. I feel like Luke Getsy keeps saying, well, I can't do that. That makes it too easy for him. What? Like, if it's got to be easy, make it easy. And
Mhm.
at least make the defense defend it first. And don't run an option route with Trent Taylor and tell me, Robert, we tried. Like,
Right. Oh,
no,
yeah, I remember that one, yeah.
no,
I mean,
don't do this to me.
I would like to see more empty stuff. That's way more easier in terms of him reading the coverage. I mean, part of it too, and I know you just said you want him to run less. It's easier to run quarterback stuff out of empty than anything else.
Oh,
These
sure.
these read options and stuff.
They
So yeah,
ran toss crack with a quarterback run out of an empty set. It
yep,
was awesome.
yeah, yeah. Like remember some of the pull stuff they ran in the goal line last year? Like just make some of that stuff work. So okay, we talked about what we think realistically could improve.
Hang on. I want to go
Oh,
one more thing.
oh yeah, sure.
One more piece. Another option. If you don't want to run a bunch of option routes, Nick, this is something that any fan on Facebook is going to bring up because the moment things start going south, what do people want to do? They want to line up in the I formation. They want to pound the piss out of the ball, and they want to run a lot of play action. But actually, if you ran the Tannehill offense, I think that there are a lot of things that could go well, like with what you might want to do with Justin Fields. There are actually points, dare I say it, Getsy should have run the ball a lot more. We could have done way more on the ground. There are much better ways to punish these six-man fronts up front. Like, get the ball to the edge and run it on them. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
No, I
Like,
agree. Now, there's a couple things to this. So, what we've been doing, we Bears have been doing, is they've been doing a lot of shotgun run game, and I prefer the play action to be under center,
oh
right?
yeah.
Because just in terms of how that looks for your linebackers, who's really the people that you want to have come up and you want to trick, is when my body can stop and you can't see where the ball is, and I'm going away from you and you don't know, and there's a way more traffic, and you can't identify who has the football. That's
Mhm.
when Cole Kmet leaks out, the slot leaks out behind you. There's things that happen, and so for that to happen, you'd have to go under center more, in my opinion. But I don't think Fields is better under center than he is in the shotgun with his athleticism and moving. And so those things aren't molding together. Now, if you wanted to redesign the whole offense and do the outside zone, boot stuff, and the guy coming underneath and leaking into the flat, that offense, which we see Kyle Shanahan, we see Green Bay doing all the time, I'm okay with that. But that's where I would prefer the play action stuff to come from. In fact, Robert, one of my favorite play actions is not when we fake outside zone and have this big wide boot. It is when you fake outside zone and then you drop straight back, because when you get the
Mhm.
defense going east and west, they can't get up the field, which gives Fields more time, which that's what he likes,
And
Robert.
that's where you get some of those plays that just look hilarious, where the quarterback drops back into play action and basically just like lollipops the ball about 10 yards down the field to a slot receiver who's
Yep,
just wide open and
yep.
runs straight up the gut. Like, I know you can recall a memory because a billion teams have done this. You run it on the 25 and you score a touchdown and
Mhm,
nobody's there. Like, everybody just runs to the edges and it
yep,
looks like the easiest touchdown of that
mhm,
offense's life. I
mhm.
think that stuff's great. And
Well
I
well, think of Luke Musgrave week 1 leaking out.
oh
Same
yeah.
thing. Outside zone, booting, leak, people run, lose track of somebody.
And you bring up something that I actually think is really worth talking about, and that's that Fields' relationships with shifting coverages, especially when play action calls him to turn his back, pushes the Bears to play out of the shotgun. But when they play out of the shotgun, I would argue the offense has to lean too much, like do or die, on what Fields can do, both pre-snap and on just drop back after drop back after drop back after drop back, right? And
Mhm,
you've got to find a middle. I don't know what
yep,
the answer is. I would love to pretend I do. I don't. But
mhm,
one of those has to change, whether that's friggin' flashcards or like whatever method you could get to create better recognition, because you've got some of these moments where the wheels fall off on the Bears offense, especially when somebody hard checks Fields. And it doesn't feel like Luke Getzey or this current edition of the Bears offense have the answers on how to get the offense back on track without needing the quarterback to drag it back on the rails. Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it's like, "Justin, put this superhero cape and, like, hopefully you can make something out of nothing," which unfortunately I'm sorry, fortunately, he can do. So,
Well,
like, leaning into that, you're like, "That's awesome," but that's also not fair to him.
it's funny you talk about the superhero cape. Let me use a basketball analogy. Okay, your best 3-point shooter has clanked 5 in a row, right? I get that you want to keep feeding him the ball, but if Justin's having a day where he's not throwing over the middle well, again, I'm not going to use that word. If he's not throwing over the middle well, you can't call a play where the answer is throw it over the middle well. And your
Mhm.
other option can't be run 3 screens in a row with
Yes.
decaying results every time and then
Yes.
continuing to run. Was it 13? Was that the final count? Screens on like 37 dropbacks? Because I thought
I
it was
thought I thought
more.
it was more than
It
that, but it
felt
could be
like way
13.
more. Like, that
Yeah.
can't be your answer. The answers that they pivoted to were either, well, he's just got to make a three for us, and it's like, but he's missing them. Like,
Mhm.
let him drive. Let him get a layup here and there.
Yep.
Like, or let his teammates score. Let him watch somebody else put the ball in the hoop and take a moment and recenter himself.
Mhm.
Instead, like the Bears, the Vikings, they leaned on an Alexander Madison fueled like rushing attack that blew up a bunch of prop bets because I had the rushing unders on every single Vikings running back because the Bears I fully expected to just consume that rushing attack,
Yep.
right? And it helped Dobbs settle out a little
It did.
bit.
It
It
did.
it brought the Bears defense forward because they were trying to basically maintain gap integrity that much more and opened up shots downfield that, granted, the Vikings didn't convert. But how else do you think Jordan Addison got one on one against Kyler Gordon with that
Mhm.
much space? The
Mhm.
Bears aren't doing this. Like, if the fifth screen doesn't work, we're loading a sixth up, or Justin's going to have to do something we know he's not doing today. And I
Yeah.
hate that because there are better answers in the run game. The Bears are just stubbornly not using them.
Mhm. And it was, I mean, we talked about this. I mean, Herbert didn't have the explosiveness, so that was part of it, and what based on like what Roshan was good with. But then, in my opinion, the answer is go empty and have Justin run some. Like that's what Philadelphia does.
Sure.
That's what Baltimore does. That's what Buffalo does. When this is what your guy is good at, you lean into it more. Like just do something different versus the definition of insanity. So are you cool moving on to the
I
next
am.
question I got here? So okay, so we have what could improve. And I like the Getsy angle. I did not think of that. That's a good one there.
You have to burn the offensive coordinator in a world where there is no like other where there is no other quarterback option. The offensive coordinator is speaking Portuguese while Justin Fields speaks French. Like
Mhm.
it's not the same language. It's not even close.
Mm.
And
Well, and actually, I think another one that I didn't even say, but it goes along with this is we all saw, I think, the locker room reaction to Eberflus talking, right? And then Justin Fields addressed his teammates, which this is what I think makes so many Bears fans just lean into him more
of
is because
course,
he was accountable. He didn't Zach Wilson this and say, no, there's nothing else I can improve, which alienates you from your teammates. He said, hey guys, thanks for having my back after the two fumbles. You know, he took all ownership with it. In the moment of celebrating, he was humble and he's like, I was not who I should be. What could improve though, with what you were talking about, with what we've seen before, if we get a little bit of momentum, is his confidence. If his confidence goes up, and I mean, Robert, it doesn't have to go up much. He is so much better. Like that's what I think people love is there's so much more in this repertoire. We saw it in Denver and Washington. We saw it last year against Miami. He is amazing. He is a superstar talent. But right now, he can't play that way because his confidence is low in certain areas. His confidence is high in other areas, but I think there's certain things that he could get better at. And if that improves and the confidence improves, if Getsy maybe cleans it up a little bit, he could get there. And I think that's exciting. That's what we all want. But we need to see it these next 5 games.
oh yeah, 100%. Now, are you ready for the hard part?
Yep.
So now we're going to talk about things that we don't think are going to improve with Justin Fields. And feel free to be as abstract or as granular as you want to be, Nick, because I'll start with one. I think that Justin Fields, so technically, you could have put Justin Fields' definition of what open is in the improve section, but it has so far to go. I don't think you'll reasonably see an improvement for a while, right? If
Mhm,
you prescribe the throw, that's a little different because the quarterback is throwing it no matter what. But right now, he is throwing after the break when he sees him wide open. And again,
mhm,
maybe that changes a little, but it's year 3, Nick. Am I crazy for thinking that it where it is right now, a lot would have to shift for it to get drastically better? Like better enough to see a major difference.
mhm. Well, I just don't think that's who he is. He's not gonna be Drew Brees. He's not gonna be Tom Brady, and the thing is there are the interceptions that we see from Fields is when he's trailing and it's over the middle. Like those ones on the outside, he's still getting away with them. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like if he throws with anticipation on the outside, there's more yak for DJ Moore. There's more yak for Darnell Mooney. There's more completions because Tyler Scott and Mooney aren't great in contested things. Like that's what we're speaking to. So no, I agree with you there. The phrase that I put down for this question is I put down super quick processing.
Hmm.
Right? It's the same thing. Anticipating, processing, and being consistent with that stuff is something that I don't think he's ever going to be that guy.
And because
But go ahead.
And because of that, one of my abstract cons or things I wanted to say for this answer is that I think down to down consistency will always be a problem for Fields. He
Mhm,
has a million things he can do on any given down. Like on any given down, not only could he throw it to 4 targets, and not only could he throw it to them before, like in the middle of, or like at the start of, in the middle of, or well after the play. But his legs are so wild and even crazier, Nick. Some of Justin Fields' personal favorite moments, like when he is sitting in his house ruminating on his career, some of his best moments so far have been these just insane, dare I say, ridiculous, almost stupid attempts with the ball in his hands that he has willed into success. Nobody, no football player should have tried to juke 2 Lions defenders, bank right, juke 3 more Lions defenders, bank back to the left, and try to run the guy over at the goal line. Somehow Fields pulled it off. Like
mhm,
he has done the impossible. enough times, I'm actually not surprised he doesn't want to throw it like in some of these timing pieces because I bet he trusts himself. And because of that, I can't help but think that Fields is always going to be a boom or bust style quarterback where I'm not surprised. 36 key yards came off of one bomb. That's who Fields is. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yeah.
You're
And
going to
well,
get it in a chunk.
to me, like go back to your analogy, I think he's a 3-point shooter. There's times he's going to be streaky, he's going to hit some. There's going to be times where he's going to miss.
Hmm.
And like, and we talked about this, I believe, before the season started, is that Justin Fields, his talent just makes him completely different, where he can get you out of problems just by being the playmaker that he is, that other quarterbacks can't. Here's case in point. 2 weeks ago, we played Detroit and we're driving. We were up, I believe, 9 at the time. Justin Fields has a read over the middle of the field, doesn't hit it, and gets sacked. And we're like, oh. Next play, scrambles down the left sideline for what was it, 30 yards on
Yes.
second and long.
Yes.
How many guys can do that? Not many.
I mean, not many. And that's the other piece to this, right? Is you're going to get it in a chunk. And it could
Mhm.
come on, if you're doing this right, it could come on nearly any down. And that's a big part of why, if I was going to design the perfect offense for Fields, I actually think it needs to be a really disturbingly run heavy team. You know me, spread head. I want to throw the ball all the time. But with Justin Fields, if you could threaten with a really diverse Lion style run game and use Justin Fields as almost a punisher, right? Where once you catch the defense in a look that you like, you're going to try to score on these given plays. You could hit some nasty sideline shots to DJ Moore, left, right, and center. Like, I mean, that's what Justin Fields does. And then if things don't work out, he can run the ball and he might just rip off a monster chunk anyways because he's so dangerous when he's scrambling. It's just kind of funny to me because in this Vikings game, with Justin Fields possessing the ball as many times as he did, I mean, Nick, it's not common. We're going to talk about a player who nearly never drops back this many times, but then he dropped back 37 times and he still rushed the ball a couple times, if memory serves. Like,
Mhm.
he touched it a lot. That
Yep.
is it's not everybody's typical like eval game for Justin Fields, but that's a very heavy dose of Justin Fields
Mhm.
when you're trying to evaluate him. And it's going to create a lot of 3 and outs. It's going to
Yeah.
it's going to
Unfor
create some moments where things just don't go well. But when it goes right, you're going to pick up a pretty much free first down. Like Josh
Mhm.
Dobbs can't get 4 yards when he's rolling
No,
out of the pocket.
that was
Justin
bad.
Fields is going to pick up 6 and look like he's almost disgusted with himself.
Yeah, or he's just, like, not even trying hard, and you're like,
Right.
that guy has burst, and it doesn't even look like it." That DJ Moore is the same way. You're like, "He doesn't even look that fast," and then he's just going by people. The other thing I don't think that will improve, Robert, almost no matter what, Justin Fields is gonna get sacked more
Mhm.
than the average quarterback. He just is. It's who he is. You're not gonna get that out of him. Even these last 2 games, 5 sacks, I think you said. That that's still gonna happen. I mean, he's not gonna be Aaron Rodgers, never get sacked and never throw picks. That's not who he is with
Well, it's so
accuracy.
funny you say that. Aaron Rodgers gets sacked a lot. Did you know this? Like Aaron Rodgers' pressure to sack rate is near 20. Like
Really?
the lowest I saw was 17. The highest I saw was 25%. Aaron
Wow.
Rodgers is a ball holder. His time to throw has been over 3 on a whole season before, and it's much closer to 2.9 than it is 2.7. In fact, more often than not, it is over 2.9. And I'm so intrigued when I look at that because there's a quarterback in the draft that I actually think plays a very similar game and it gets us off a Mahomes comp. Like if you know me at all, you know I hate comping people to Hall of Famers before they've done anything because
Mhm.
it is always a mess. But in that specific one, it made me realize we may misunderstand Aaron Rodgers. But keep going.
Yeah. So I want to go on to the next one, unless you have anything else there of like what won't likely improve with Justin Fields. The next 5 games, crucial. And it's funny because we've had like, okay, this game is everything. And then it was this game is everything. The next 5 games, I mean, he's playing for his starting career in Chicago. You could argue Flus is as well, maybe Getsy, et cetera. So I mean, I fully expect them to want to win, to want to do well. Um, I have 2 things on my list that Justin Fields has to do to be the starter next year. One is he has to reduce turnovers, no matter if it's a fumble, no matter if it's a pick, he has to reduce turnovers. And the other one, he has to be consistent, at least more consistent. I don't think he's ever going to be the most consistent quarterback,
Hmm.
but he has to have a little bit more consistency. Against Detroit, he was consistent. I would call that game consistent. Minnesota, I would not call super consistent. I don't think he had a bad game, but I don't think it was as consistent as Detroit. So and we go back to the Washington and the Denver games. It was great first half and a couple drives, and then it
Hmm.
was stalled out, and then maybe one great drive in the fourth quarter against Washington.
Right.
We just need more consistency from him. And when you see that, you'll get confidence. The team will get confidence, and everything will go from there.
That's what you'd certainly hope for, right? By the way, does the number one pick exist again? Like, if we're talking about what does he need to do to prove himself as the
Sure.
starter,
Sure.
like, or at this point, are we saying what does Fields need to do to inspire confidence for next year? Like, do we want to keep the Carolina pick like out of sight, out of mind,
Well,
right?
we're going to talk about it soon because I got something out. I got some questions for you. So,
We are, but in in the nature of just keeping things focused on Fields, because when we get to the comparison game, that's where things get ugly and it's
mhm.
messy, right? I would want to see Fields hit a few in breakers. I don't need a million, just some,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'd like to see them thrown with anticipation because you really can't throw them late. Like by the time you would throw an in breaker late, you are pressured. It is the nature of the beast, right? I would also really like Nick to beat the Browns. Or there are some defenses going down the stretch, like Arizona's awful. Fields should pull their pants down. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
especially if Fields is who a lot of people think he is. I think Fields shouldn't have much issue smoking the Arizona Cardinals because right now he is killing teams that don't have the capability to basically beat a pretty good offensive line like in the pass rush to stop DJ Moore, who's really hard to stop, and
Mhm.
then keep Justin Fields from just chucking bombs on him. Those are the guys that he lands a bunch of haymakers. But Nick, the Browns game coming up, especially if Miles Garrett doesn't play it, I want to see competent, capable quarterbacking. A lot of quarterbacks have been made to look messy by that Browns defense.
Yep.
Fields wouldn't ever be out of line to have a bad game. I mean, quarterbacks have bad games all the time, right?
Yep. Yep.
But I feel like I am out of benefit of the doubt, right? I
Yep.
actually feel like I'm having to work to continually try to put benefit of the doubt back because I find
Mhm.
myself blaming too much on Fields when I'm being emotional. And it in this case, what I want to see from Fields, let's get a couple in breakers. Let's see a few anticipatory throws. I would love to see actual hot routes, but I don't know if that's a Getsy problem or a Fields problem,
Yep.
and I'm
Yep.
not going to assume. So
So,
just a few of the things that we're not doing. Let's do just a few of them.
yeah, and one thing, when you wanna add in, okay, what do players do well? We want them to keep doing those things. DJ Moore, as we all know at this point, which honestly, like, shame on me for not knowing all of this prior to, even though I watched a lot of tape. He's amazing after the reception, right? Players that are good after the reception do better with in breaking routes because they keep their momentum going. So, like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm gonna hit him on a slant, then he's gonna break a tackle and just go. In breaking route, break the safety tackle and go, or beat angles. Like that goes together well. So if you lean into that just a little bit, Robert, I think there are big plays to be had with DJ Moore.
I think so too. We just got to throw him, right?
Mhm.
I mean, DJ's running his fair share of in breakers. The Bears just aren't throwing the ball on a lot
Yeah.
of them. And
Mhm.
they're very similar in breakers to the ones. It's the only thing Tyson Bagent did that Justin Fields hasn't reasonably done. And I really mean it. Like a few of those second and third down throws to Tyler Scott, Darnell Mooney, etc., that were just the backside dig over the middle, the most Shanahan of Shanahan routes, right? They're there, but to hit them, you have to know that your front side read isn't there, know what the coverage is, and know that the backside dig is already open because you need to be loading the throw as you move your eyes.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it is a timing throw that has to come out. And it's kind of emblematic of where I think Fields differs from a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, for better and for worse. Because I mean, the two, not one, two, three, if you count the Detroit game, throws that Fields has made where he's rolling really hard to his left and he just like whips his arm back and wrists the ball to DJ Moore. The first one in particular that he had in like the first or second drive, Nick, that is nasty. He throws it
Mhm.
through a lane that I still don't know how he found. That truly, if the guy wearing it's 10, right? Mahomes, is he
Yeah.
10? That's what I thought.
15.
15. Man, I knew I was stupid.
Trubisky's 10.
Anyways, Drake May will be 10 for all we know, probably, right? But so, like, if Patrick Mahomes made that same throw, people would go, Mahomes, what a guy. Like, that meme gets used too often, but that one was unbelievable.
Yeah.
These are throws Fields is going to make out of structure. It's the in structure. It's the part where we say, if I get you an offensive coordinate, let me say this, Nick. This is the most brutal, but the most direct way I can say this, right? I want to see Justin Fields make Kyle Shanahan regret not taking him. Even to this point right now, I'm not sure Kyle Shanahan cares. I think Kyle Shanahan is perfectly fine with Brock Purdy, and that
Yep.
there's a reason that Kyle Shanahan passed over on Justin in the first place, having a lot to do with these same issues with timing. So
Yep.
show me over these next 5 games that if we go get you a Ben Johnson, if we go get you a Bobby Slowick, that you are going to be able to run this stuff.
Mhm.
Because if you can't run it, Ben won't want to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and also, like, he's playing for, if you play well, to make it a decision for the next coach if they have one, to the new coordinator, for polls, etcetera. Like, you make it a little bit more of a debate. One other thing too, I think that, just to be fair to Justin, is he has this week, obviously with the bye week and etcetera. Hopefully that thumb is more healthy too. Like, I think we need to
hopefully.
give him a little credit. Like, that might be affecting some of these throws he's had the last 2 weeks, that he might be at 80%, and hopefully he'll get up to 90 or 95 with that thumb.
Can I talk about something else that I legitimately think plays into this? And Nick, what I'm about to talk about is like tinfoil hat, crazy town
You have
stuff.
so many tinfoil hats over there, man.
I know, I know. But I think this is real. Coaches are. I don't know if coaches are selfish, but like coaches do want credit. And when Luke Getzey puts together a bunch of these route combinations, and Justin Fields no looks them in some cases, and then goes and makes a crazy play out of structure, everybody points and says Justin is unbelievable, and Luke Getzey sucks. Luke Getzey sucks is a common refrain. I can't help but wonder. Look, I think the coach killer thing always gets overrated. I only bring it up because Jay got that coach killer moniker, and I was like, this is stupid. Like, I don't think Jay hates his coaches, but at the same time, man,
Well, we heard the comment about Mike Martz that he had.
right. To be fair,
And Mike Tyson is just like, hey, drop back, throw up to Brandon. Like, that was the thing too.
right? The duh offense. I'll never forget the duh offense.
Yeah,
But
I'll throw it
so
to Brandon Marshall too. Yeah, good call.
within this, it's like I can't help but think that Justin Fields right now, I don't think he and Luke Getzey have like a contentious relationship per se, but every time they seem to talk about each other, it doesn't seem to feel as natural as we saw moments in the locker room, like Justin Fields and Matt Eberflus embracing. Like Justin Fields did not embrace Luke
Oh,
Getzey on
oh,
camera.
we saw a hug though. Come on, we saw the hug on the practice field after he called out coaching.
You mean
Remember?
the like softest hug ever? You know what I'm talking about? Like, but that's actually not gonna fit into my tinfoil hat. I don't really care about whether they hug it like on camera, off camera, whatever. It's more like
We need a
Nick.
breakdown of hug that you think is
if
soft and
if
it's a good
you were a
man hug.
coach, if you were a coach, Nick, be honest with me. If you were a coach and you had one guy that could play in structure and he made your play calls work, and then you had another guy who was objectively better than the guy in structure, but he did everything out of structure. So all your play calls, they go in the trash, right? And
Mhm.
he looks amazing. And when things don't work, who do they blame? You. Like, I can't help but wonder if that's a part that plays into this. It's part of why again, tinfoil hat and all that, that I want to see Fields succeed a little in structure, because I think that some of these offensive coaches want to look good as their stuff looks good. Bobby Slowick is getting talked about as a head coach because a rookie is playing like an MVP at times throughout this season.
You know who has a worse on target percentage and a higher bad throw percentage than Justin Fields?
It's Jordan Love, isn't it?
CJ Stroud.
Oh man, I thought you were gonna go with the Love angle.
No,
Uh,
no. But hold on. To answer your question, though, I have had that. I've had athletic quarterbacks that don't play great within what I want called, and they've played good outside of structure. And I don't care. I want to win, so I'm okay with leaning
good.
into that, and I care about my guys. And but I altered what we did to fit them. That's what good coaching does, and I don't see that happening as much.
And that's absolutely where this always has to come back to making sure we say talking about where Justin Fields is struggling is not implicitly apologizing for Luke Getzey, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Separate issues.
Yep.
Like there's a
Yep.
lot of problems in Chicago's offense. And
All right.
let's go through
I'm
some
ripping off, I'm
scenarios.
ripping off the Band-Aid. Okay. The 101 pick is Chicago's.
Okay.
So first off, people get this wrong all the time, and I need to clarify this. So this is not Justin Fields versus Caleb Williams or Justin Fields versus Drake May. I'm not going to debate any other quarterbacks. Those are the two. It's not him versus either one of those.
You don't want to talk
It
about Jaden
is.
Daniels? You don't want to talk about Jaden McCarthy? You don't want to
I.
talk about
I mean, they're okay, but they're not.
Quinn
No,
Ewers? Quinn
no,
Ewers, you want to talk about Quinn
no, Quinn.
Ewers?
No, no, no. Michael Penix Jr. No. So this is Justin Fields plus the trade package that you get for trading out of the 101 versus one of those two quarterbacks plus the trade package you get for Justin Fields. That is the debate. And we get this wrong all the time. Like, let's just say, for example, you get the trade package that you got last year for the 101 and keep DJ Moore, which you're like, okay, cool. I get all these first round picks. I get another weapon. I get second round picks, etc. That's the debate. It's not Bryce Young versus Justin Fields, which is, you look at it now, you're like, well, yeah, obviously that's not the debate. But people are doing that on Twitter. You can't do that. So I have a question for you, Robert. I have some scenarios because we don't know how the draft order is going to work out. Right now, I can pull up Tankathon. The Bears have first and fourth. Arizona's second, New England's third. But I want to say, like, let's say this is like the fifth, sixth pick. Okay.
Okay.
And do you want to trade away Justin Fields, right? Or the package you get is 3 first round picks. And I'm going to start with probably the worst and I'll go to the best. Okay. So you keep Fields, and the trade package you get is 3 first round picks plus Jahan Dotson.
Oh, from Washington.
Yep. And let's say it's the 5th pick overall.
Okay.
Do you take that or do you roll with the rookie quarterback?
And they're going to come up to number 1.
Yep.
Let's say it's 9th. Like, just because, first of all, I think that's a hell of a trade package. If you really get 3 ones and also a sweet receiver, like, sheesh. I mean, that's the dream scenario that I almost think is overselling it, purely because while I understand people are going to want Caleb Williams, that organization just put a bullet in their own, like, metaphorical head the moment that they trade that much away. At that point, Caleb has to be worth so much more than any other NFL player that honestly, like, you're not going to be able to fill a football team that way. And
Right.
I feel like the Carolina Panthers have unfortunately kind of proved that. And a Washington team, anyways, I'm not going to scrutinize the
But
Commanders piece.
we saw it with Trey Lance too.
Get it.
There's 3 firsts, and plus some extras. So like I'm
The
thinking like
49ers are just wildin', okay? They're
yeah, yeah.
just save scumming for all I know. Like, there's no way that they're making this work off
So
of
so
just
so so wh- so
right.
which one are you
Let's go
going
through
with?
this. So there's a quick little rant I need to go on, right? And
You always have the
talking
rants.
it's
I'm
talking
gonna take
about
a Coke break here.
it's talking about how, in my opinion, the decision about Justin Fields and about Caleb Williams versus Drake May comes down to a weird, simple choice, right? That is, do you want to prioritize 2024 potentially at the expense, potentially, Nick, at the expense of the years after that? Or do you want to prioritize 2025, which might give you a better shot at 2026 and beyond, but it kind of means you're going to delay your gratification because
Yeah, I get
2024
it. Yeah.
you deal with the
That's a
rookie.
fair debate.
The the interesting piece about the Bears roster right now is that the majority of the core pieces on their roster, I'm looking at you, Montez Sweat. I'm looking at you, DJ Moore. I'm looking at you, even let's include Andrew Billings, Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones, Nate Davis. They all have 2 years of control at least. Many of them have three, but they have at least 2 years of control. And I am going to factor in a Jalen Johnson extension. He is playing too well. Pick sixes or like getting dropped does not really affect my evaluation that much because the fact that he's there to make the play is enough. You know what I'm saying, Nick? Where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, pay this guy.
I mean,
And
I'd prefer him to be Deron Bland, but it's still
so would
okay.
I, right? But so within this structure, the team as it's currently constructed, nothing really needing to change. Not going into which free agents did they sign, not really getting into who did they draft after the quarterback. This nucleus of the team, the part that has Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker as role players, the part that has like Tyreek Stevenson and Jalen Johnson as your corner. You get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
team has 2 years and it kind of fits a rookie. It does if you moved on right now, because
Mhm.
after this, you are going to need to trade up for your shot at Patrick Mahomes. And a lot of people have traded up for a lot of quarterbacks. Josh Rosen was not Patrick Mahomes, right? Like Trey
Bryce Young
Trey
is not
Lance.
Patrick Mahomes.
I'm trying to think of not number one and not number two
Ah, I gotcha. Gotcha.
because there are a lot of quarterbacks. Everybody knows this. Like Russell Wilson was a third round pick. Dak Prescott was a fourth round pick. His situation was kind of different. It involved a DUI, but you get it. Like
Yeah.
Derek Carr was a second round pick. You may not love Will Levis, but like that's a value deal that the Tennessee Titans found. And up until this last season, it sure looked as if McCorkle Jones was a decent pick at 15th, and then the wheels fell off. And what
Yep.
I'm really trying to get at here, Nick, is you can, with all of those picks you're talking about in the trade, you can reset at quarterback feasibly. There's a but though, because after 2024, if for some reason you have to move on from Justin Fields, you are either going to need to put a rookie in, or you're going to need to find a veteran because the veteran can play fast and
Mhm.
get onto a roster that is starting to age and starting to get expensive, right? Not because everything ends in 2025, but because you're trying to break open a window here. Wouldn't you agree? You want a 2 to 3 year stretch of really good Super Bowl winning football. And if you try to put the rookie in 2025, then Andrew Billings' contract is expired. You have to extend DJ Moore for 2026. And then at that point, you have to already start talking extension with Braxton Jones, who will be at let me see. So this was the second year. 2025 will be his fourth year. So he'll need an extension. And Darnell Wright will be talking about an extension because he'll just have finished his third season. And
Mhm.
then you also are going to need to extend Kyler Gordon or release him. Like you're probably letting Brisker walk unless things change, or you're talking about him. You get what I'm saying, Nick? Where it's like the money gets weird
Oh,
at
I
that point.
no, I get it, but to me, you have to insert the picks in there. So it's like, okay,
You do.
if they have if this is the trade down scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they do trade down and you have 3 picks plus Jahan Dotson, let's just
Yes,
say, that's 3 first round picks you extra that you could insert into some of those spots, and I don't know that it matters as much.
it
There's less
doesn't. It
there's less
definitely
pressure.
doesn't matter in 2024, right? In 2024, my argument would be that even a meh Justin Fields, even whatever you think 2023 Justin Fields is, could probably win 10 games with the roster that we're talking about.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
and against the schedule that's harder. If the schedule's easy, sheesh, you could repeat 2018 down to the part where you could bounce to the playoffs. Let's not talk about it. Like, that's very on the table. If Justin Fields steps forward, sheesh, you're talking about contention. Just what if he doesn't? You know,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
the NFL's cruel, Nick. It's cruel. And you get
Mhm.
these guys that go on heaters like Nick Foles did. Like, sure, the best quarterback doesn't always win, but Case Keenum needed a miracle to pull off what he did in Minneapolis. And then he got beat in the round after that. Like,
Now Go in this scenario for me. Imagine 4 straight years of having multiple first round picks.
I know.
What
Like
does that team look
that's
like?
why when I heard if you can't tell the reason I'm trying to dodge the question, Nick, is
Mhm.
because you told me you're going to give me better offers, and I don't even know if the Bears are going to get this one because it
Oh,
is so gaudy.
I
So
well,
gaudy.
you don't think I think the offers will be better this year than they were last year? You don't think so?
The offer they got last year, I still think people are undervaluing it. Like I called it I think I don't know if I used words like the fleecing of the century, but it was always up there because I thought DJ Moore on the open market goes for a first and a second. Like DJ Moore had production that AJ Brown didn't have, man. If memory serves. Like DJ Moore was the value. Oh no, this is the better way to put this, Nick. The Bears did something very unusual. In getting DJ Moore, they got a first and another current year first instead of having to do the round to round discount thing, right? A future first obviously has more value, like a first 2 years down the road has more value than a third round pick, but it's what makes the valuation so disgusting on these trade charts, which is why, to me, DJ Moore made that trade chart so lopsided. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it is more likely you would get a first and a second, next year's first, and the year after that's third plus Jahan Dotson, just to try to avoid that third year first because Washington wants to protect themselves against a total bottom out, you know,
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, that could be. So, okay,
which is
let's
still a
reduce it then.
crazy deal. That deal is still, man. Ooh.
Okay, two first round picks and Jahan Dotson.
I'm probably taking Caleb personally.
Okay. 2 first round picks and Jeffrey Simmons.
Jeez. Oh, you're really doing it to me, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh man.
The next 3 are gonna be defensive linemen.
I'll take Caleb, but I'm doing the like hand on the glass thing
Yep.
every time that he doesn't win a game, where I'm like, what did I give up?
Okay. Here's the well, I'll just do one more just because it's getting repetitive. 2 first round picks and Max Crosby.
To humor you, I will take it, but then I'll also say if you actually did give me the original deal that you gave me, I can't turn it down.
Yeah.
Like 3 years of first round picks. And another one with Atlanta that I've thought about is like, what if they offered Drake London because they feel like they're not using him enough and that they think they can get over it if they get another quarterback? It's like, how do you turn that down? Right?
Well,
I
you
would,
need more than just Drake London, right?
well, Drake London three firsts was
Oh,
the idea. So
yeah.
that's disgusting. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Not only that, but you get a guy to pair with DJ Moore. I would immediately try to flip Drake London in one of the firsts for number 2 with our first. Like so that I could so that I could truly get my way. Maybe not with Drake. I'd keep Drake, but I'd try to use some draft capital to just bully a team
Yeah.
into giving me what
Well,
I wanted.
I mean,
But
I think
I
this
don't think
is
they'd let me. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I
Well,
don't
but I
think they
think
trade
part of this
out.
too is Chicago needs to have a better number 2 and whether Mooney stays or not and improving the wide receiver 3, I think that's a whole because like one thing you talked about is the confidence that Fields has with DJ Moore. You want him to have that with another guy. And I thought he
You do.
had that with Darnell Mooney, and it's gone.
Well, it doesn't
And
help anything that you want to Nick, you want
no,
to take a guess where Darnell Mooney's routes go?
I know where they go.
They go over the middle.
No, I know. I watched the tape, but like, if it's Drake London, if it's Marvin Harrison Jr., which I know people like have this thing, if he has that confidence with another guy, it almost makes your offense like impossible to stop because
Ooh,
people
hang on.
can't wait and stop Fields from running. And then if you have confidence with 2 guys on both, let's say even both outside the hashes, you can't double everybody.
But you hinted at something. Anybody who made it this far in the podcast likes us enough to let me let you go off for a hot moment, okay? You hinted at an infatuation with Marvin Harrison. Are you telling me that you actually like other receivers in this draft class?
So yes, okay.
How dare
So
you?
Marvin Harrison Jr. I know he's great. Okay, everybody. I would say he's one of the best receivers in recent memory.
Rules.
But Malik Neighbors is very, very nice. And I've talked about this, I think, on previous pods, but think DJ Moore. He would be fabulous opposite of DJ Moore. I also love Keon Coleman. think, um,
T. Higgins, but he can move.
I go Brandon Marshall light because he's way more
Oh
athletic.
my
He's way
god.
he's 6'4", 220 is returned punts, Robert.
I
Who
know.
does that?
I know. And then I
You
think Roma Dunze is like somebody where you take a, I don't want to call it a slot receiver, but you take like a normal Z receiver and then you stretch the corners and now he's just bigger, right? And you're like, how do you move like that at plenty of moments? I mean, it's more to say that the other thing that we've talked about before, Nick, that I think this is the most important thing to close the Justin Fields piece on is Bears fans are going to do a lot of arguing. They're going to do a lot of making this topic really, really toxic. Justin Fields is not a backup. Like, Justin Fields is easily good enough to start. Will he start with a new contract? Man, Nick, I'm dying to know what the market would value Fields at right now. But he's not going to get valued right now because he's got
know,
2 more years of control. And the whole
mhm,
reason we think we could trade Justin Fields is because teams are going to see the potential. They're going to see what Luke Getsy has done. Sorry. And they're going to assume that they can get more than these stupid Bears can.
yes,
But
yes.
if the Bears do, or if the Bears don't, they should get a lot better. The team is kind of balling. The defense is a year ahead of schedule. I didn't think Flus had it in him, man.
Yep.
Like,
DJ Moore's better than we thought. The offensive line's coming together. Right now, we don't need a tackle with that other first round pick. That is
gosh,
awesome. So,
gosh.
like no matter what, we both on the same page here. We both love Justin Fields. We both like the quarterback prospects. Chicago is going to win here, no matter what. And I think we should just enjoy the ride because no matter what
Right.
happens, Chicago wins. And
Last
and
year,
our future is so much brighter, Robert, than I thought it was going to be because Carolina, thank you. You suck, and it's going to help us whether we
amen.
trade the pick and get
Thank goodness.
a bounty or we get another quarterback.
And
Thank you.
and it's so funny because like Nick, I I hate it when media people, quote unquote media people, right? I'm not a media person.
Yeah, you are.
But so like media people will like talk about like that what people online are calling them, right? I need to just point out how many hours I spent last summer, defending the idea that the Bears should stick with Justin Fields, which I still think was without a doubt the right decision. CJ
Mhm.
Stroud looks amazing. He did not look this amazing as a prospect. And Bryce Young was so the consensus number one, anyways, that I'm not convinced the Bears would have taken Stroud. And I'm very thankful with the decision they made. It was the right call.
Mhm.
When Nick and I are talking, when I am talking about taking Caleb, it is because I like Caleb that much. Like, it is a positive thing. Does that make sense, Nick? This is
Yeah.
becoming oh, what? You think this rookie who's never played a down of football is better than Justin Fields? It's like,
Dude, he's
oh,
good.
let's hold on here. Like, Caleb Williams is in that prospect stratosphere that Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence were in. I don't really care
Yep.
how you rank them. Like, they're in the same tier. And then Drake May, kind of out of nowhere, clawed his way into that tier too. And
Yep.
you're
Yep.
like, sheesh. I mean,
It's a great problem to have.
there's normally so many more red flags when it
Mhm.
comes to is this guy going to have a shot at being a top 10 quarterback? Like, normally you're having to work around and account for way more. And it's just not that often that you get a player where you go, well, so he looked, this is about CJ Stroud, by the way. You go, well, he looked like, one guy who kind of folded under pressure and never really had to
Yep.
do anything. And
Yep.
he could make a nice anticipatory throw, but like this offense, did everything for him outside of the Georgia game where holy Lord. And then who comes to the
Yep.
NFL? The Georgia game.
Yep.
Like
Exactly.
every game.
Mhm.
And it's like that's not usual. Usual they have that one heater game, and then you leave crack jobs like me talk about how Nick Foles is actually good because of his Super Bowl run. And
I know.
it just fades. You know what
I
I
know.
mean?
No, I'm with you too. And I was 100% on board with keeping Fields and going there. But with how good these guys are, like it's not because we want to get rid of Fields. It's because these guys are just that good. And it's a good problem to have. And honestly, like I I do this on the mock draft simulators every week, Robert. I do one where I'm like, cool, let's get a bounty of picks, which I think they
Mhm.
can get more than PFF is going to allow us and trade down. and I do ones where I think we're just going to take whichever quarterback I like better at the top, and
And
we'll do a lot of breakdowns on some of that stuff. But really, I hope like people took away from this that we really dissected Fields' game in the NFL with Chicago,
mhm,
what he's done better at because he has improved. This isn't like
mhm,
Justin Fields has just played. He's not Zach Wilsoning this. He's not Mac Jonesing this. Everybody, he's better than they are, and if he's not starting in Chicago, he'll start somewhere else next year.
right.
He's improved, but there's things that I don't think he'll ever be good at, and there's things I think he could improve at, and I hope people learn something from this.
And I'll tell you, I'll leave you with one other piece, just one other thing, because obviously, like, okay, so Nick, I am having to work hard to try to not watch too much draft tape because
Mhm.
I know how this goes. I know how this goes. The
Yep.
moment that I actually watch like enough to get a full scouting report together of either quarterback is the moment Carolina's hot streak starts. Like, and they will just erase any reason to have done that work. This is my life.
Yep. Yep.
But what I will say is like the other piece to the rookie quarterback thing that I sometimes feel like people leave out is they talk about this thing. I kind of hinted at this earlier. Like by drafting a rookie quarterback, you immediately are rebuilding or whatever. And I'm sitting here like, man, if you did draft Caleb Williams and you did trade Justin Fields, you could argue that that sets you up to have already signed like a Daniil Hunter type player that Brad Biggs already talked about. And sure, that'd be a lot of money at edge rusher, but sheesh, Nick, like, can you imagine a defensive line with Hunter and also Sweat and also Gervon Dexter as and what he's becoming and Andrew Billings on early downs? I mean, you'd be I don't want to say it's a nightmare, but that'd be a very good defensive line. And
Yes.
so then you look at the other side of the ball, and if you add a decent center in free agency and you draft Malik Neighbors, Keon Coleman, Rome Odunze to go with Caleb Williams, we've said it before, it might be the greatest first round pick offense in or first overall like offense in history. Because
Yes.
normally that team sucks, and this
Yes.
team would be ready to go. And
Yep.
I could very reasonably see a rookie having much better like much better outlook at success immediately. Sure, you're going to have plenty of rookie moments, right? But normally the rookie looks bad on a bad team, which compounds it. This would
Mhm.
be the rookie's going to have bad moments, and then they're going to have other moments where DJ Moore's DJ Moore or Malik
Mhm.
Neighbors, who I don't know if you've seen this, but like the more I watch DJ Moore, the more I watch Malik. Malik's got a little bit of that like Jalen Waddle to him, like that just pure speed element.
Yeah.
And it's not to say DJ doesn't, but now the pair looks a lot better to me than a clone where
Mhm.
Malik can do a lot of things after the catch, like a lot of speedy receivers. But if you use Malik as a Z that can get over the top and allow DJ Moore to then in break on things like Dagger, where DJ can create so much havoc, sheesh.
Mhm.
Like
Well, you know what I and you're right because like most of the time, first overall picks are in situations that like Bryce Young is in right now, and you're like,
Joe
oh man, we
Burrow
really have
his
to.
first year.
We just
Off
got to put stuff
Trevor
together.
Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence got
Yeah.
the number one overall pick.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence got the number one
I
overall pick.
Andrew Luck, like a lot of guy Peyton Manning, they just get beat up their rookie year. But what I kind of look at it as is kind of a worse version of what the 49ers did with Trey Lance. Like, oh,
Mhm.
this is all we need. We'll trade everything because we got this, this, and this. And people they're like, hold on, they're way better than that. The Niners didn't have Christian McCaffrey when they made that trade.
Right.
So you take him away, and Ayuk didn't ascend until after this trade.
And
They
boy,
had the
did he.
guys. DJ Moore is a better receiver than anyone the Niners had at that time. So, like, you go through, you're like, it's kind of something like that, where you're like, we just add this one piece and you could take off, even as a rookie.
I still remember, by the way, watching Thomas Graham's tape at Oregon, and one of the only all 22 games I could find was him against Arizona State. And I was like, who is this guy? Like lining up across from him as Brandon Ayuk, who had some
Yeah.
of the sassiest tape I've ever seen in a receiver. And
Juco.
I mean, goodness, man.
Yeah, he was good.
He can
You said
play.
Thomas Graham, and I thought Thomas Brown, and he just, just got let go, but whatever.
Oh, man.
I Funny story. When I was coaching, I had to coach against Thomas Brown when he was a running back at Georgia.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyways, I'll end on that.
Right. We've got plenty more coming. We're not 100% certain what we're doing. Let's do something, at least something on the supporting cast, and then we're gonna find something to do. on our Sunday and our Thursday shows coming up. But until next time, Bears fans, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Nick, do you have a DFS article coming up on Friday?
Oh, yeah. One will be coming Friday. Get ready for it.
Oh, I can't wait. I mean, you're winning people money. I've seen it out
I
there.
I know. I've been doing well, and it's been fun, because people obviously they like being right with their picks, so it's been fun to see that.
Everybody likes to win money, and
Mhm.
so do we. Bears fans, check out at this point. So we're gonna get this podcast posted on Thursday. So that night, I will be reviewing the film from the all 22 from the Vikings game, and stay posted for a draft preview stream that we'll do sometime a couple days after. I owe you guys one, and I'm gonna make it happen. The scheduling has just been messy to get out of the Monday night game. But until next time, Bears fans, aside from that, stay tuned to DBB, stay safe out there, and until next time, bear down, and thanks so much for bearing with us.